Mia had always been a deep sleeper, the kind who could sleep through thunderstorms and blaring sirens. But tonight, something pulled her from her dreams, a sound soft and deliberate, like fingers dragging across the wooden floor. She lay still, heart hammering in her chest, straining to hear through the silence. Then it came again, a slow, deliberate scratch under her bed. Her breath hitched. She told herself it was nothing. Maybe the old wooden floor shifting, maybe the wind sneaking through the cracks in the window. But then she heard it again, and this time it was followed by something worse. A whisper, low, hoarse, and far too close. "I see you." Mia's entire body tensed. The voice had come from beneath her bed. She squeezed her eyes shut, pressing herself into the mattress as if she could sink into it, disappear into the fabric. The air in the room felt thick, heavy, pressing against her lungs. She wanted to scream, but fear latched onto her throat like a vice. She lay like that for what felt like an eternity. Silence stretched around her, but she could feel it. Something was there, waiting. Summoning every ounce of courage, she slowly reached for her phone on the nightstand. Her fingers trembled as she turned on the flashlight and angled it toward the edge of the bed. The light spilled onto the floor. Nothing. Mia let out a shaky breath, her heartbeat still a wild drum in her chest. Maybe she imagined it. Maybe she was still half dreaming. Then she saw it. A hand, not her own. It darted back into the darkness under her bed, retreating as if it had been caught. But before it disappeared entirely, she saw something worse. Fingernails jagged and broken, the skin pale and raw, as if it had been clawing at something for too long. Terror overtook her. She launched herself off the bed, not daring to look back. She bolted for the door, yanking it open so fast it slammed against the wall. She raced down the hallway, feet barely touching the floor, as she ran straight for the front door. But just as her fingers grasped the doorknob, a voice, low and sickly sweet, whispered from behind her. "You almost made it!" Mia screamed. The lights flickered and then darkness. The next morning, the police found her apartment door wide open. Her bed was neatly made, her phone still on the nightstand, the flashlight still on. But Mia was gone. And under the bed, they found scratches in the wood, deep, desperate gouges, marking years of waiting. Lily had always loved houses with history, so when she moved into the old Victorian home at the edge of town, she considered it a dream come true. It had tall ceilings, wooden floors that creaked under her steps, and intricate stained glass windows that cast eerie patterns on the walls at sunset. The only strange thing? One door in the house was permanently locked. It was at the end of the upstairs hallway, a heavy oak door with a brass handle that refused to turn, no matter how much she pulled or twisted. She assumed it led to a storage space or an attic. The landlord had simply said, "Don't bother with it. Just leave it be." She tried to ignore it. But at night she swore she could hear something behind it, a faint shuffling, a quiet, almost rhythmic tapping, a presence. One night, curiosity got the best of her. She knelt down and peeked through the keyhole. At first, she saw nothing, just a deep, velvety red, like a curtain blocking her view. But then, movement, a shadow shifting ever so slightly. Someone was in there. Lily shot back, heart pounding. She stumbled away from the door, grabbing her phone. Who could it be? Had someone been living in her house this entire time? She barely slept that night, listening to the occasional creaks and soft sounds from the other side of the locked door. The next morning, she went to the landlord. "There's someone in that room," she said. The old man's face drained of color. He sighed, rubbing a wrinkled hand over his face. "You looked through the keyhole, didn't you?" he asked. Lily nodded. "I saw red, like a curtain or something." The landlord swallowed hard before speaking again. "A long time ago, a man lived in that room. A quiet man, strange but harmless, until one day he went mad. The neighbors heard screams, but by the time they got inside, he was gone. All that was left behind were two red eyes." Lily's breath caught in her throat. That wasn't a curtain. The red she saw through the keyhole had been someone watching her back. When Daniel and his wife, Emily, moved into their new house, they were thrilled. It was a charming old home, spacious, full of character, and surprisingly affordable. It seemed like a perfect place to start their new life. But there was one thing that unsettled Emily from the start. The closet in their bedroom. It was an old wooden door, slightly warped from age, with a tarnished brass handle. Every time she passed it, she felt uneasy, as if something behind it was watching. "It's just an old house, Em," Daniel would say with a laugh. "Creaks, drafts, nothing to be scared of." But she wasn't so sure, because at night, when the world was silent, she could hear whispers coming from inside. Software, muted, like voices trying not to be heard. She pressed her ear to the door once, and immediately pulled away, because the moment she did, the whispers stopped. That night, she shook Daniel awake. "It's the closet," she whispered. "There's something wrong with it." Half asleep, he sighed and stumbled out of bed, yanking the closet door open. "See?" he muttered. "Nothing." And it was true. The closet was empty. Just a few jackets, old shoeboxes, and a single burned-out light bulb hanging from the ceiling. Emily let out a breath. Maybe she was overreacting. Until the next night. She woke suddenly, a feeling of dread twisting in her stomach. The room was dark, but she could hear it. The whispers were louder now, and this time they weren't muffled. They were right next to her ear. Her breath hitched, her body frozen in terror. She turned her head slowly and saw that the closet door was open, wide open. Daniel was still sound asleep. But there, in the dim glow of the streetlights outside, she saw it. A handprint. A dark, smudged handprint on the inside of the door. She didn't scream. She couldn't. Her body refused to move as she stared at the closet, waiting, listening. Then, creak. Something shifted inside. That was enough. She shook Daniel violently. "Wake up! Wake up!" He groaned, but sat up, rubbing his eyes. "What the... Look." Her voice was barely above a whisper as she pointed to the closet. Daniel frowned. "Emily, did you?" Then they heard it. A single raspy breath, coming from inside. Without hesitation, Daniel jumped out of bed, ran to the closet, and slammed the door shut, locking it. The house was silent. No whispers. No breath. Nothing. The next morning, they packed their things and left. They never went back. But months later, when a new family moved in, their little boy tugged on his mother's sleeve one night and said, "Mommy, the man in the closet says he misses Emily."